Hi everyone. Um, have you ever noticed how one new understanding, something you get something for the first time, uh, can completely change the way that you behave without you keep having to remind yourself to do something a particular way? So once you have the understanding, once you have the learning, it's just there. And it's not a case of continually reminding yourself, repeating that you've got to do things a certain way. So one of the analogies I often use in LightMinds is about riding a bike. When you first start riding a bike, and you probably don't remember this actually happening this way, but because that's another element of it, we forget it. At the beginning, balancing on the bike felt nigh on impossible. You you had to think about where your hands were. You had to think about um, pedaling. You had to think about how fast you were going. You had to consider how to turn the handlebars. And with all that going on, somehow you had to keep yourself upright. And that requires an awful lot of concentration. I can remember the first time that I ever sat in a car to drive it. I was at university at the time with a girlfriend, and we went about 100 yards. That's all. Oh, we were on the road and I had a huge headache. The concentration was enormous. And that's what happens when we learn anything. So, with the bike analogy, because we learn it so young, it seems to happen so fast, but we would have been concentrating and then something changed. Now, the thing is, it wasn't because you became better at remembering instructions. It was that you understood something new. And once that understanding clicked, balancing became easy. It's just something you did. Now, that understanding took place inside you. It wasn't through, it had been through conscious effort, and then it just flipped. Now, years later, you can climb on a bike and ride away, and you don't need to think about anything about it. It's just there. You've got it. There's no need to go through the conscious thought process of what you should or shouldn't do. You learnt it. And once you've learnt it, it's inside you. Now, another analogy I often use is and related to the same thing, but I want to use a couple as examples of this, is learning to swim. Most of us can swim, not everybody, but most of us can swim. Now, initially, when you learn to swim, and you watch any child or any adult learning to swim, everything is difficult. It needs concentration. It needs to be deliberate. You need to think about your breathing, how you move your arms and your legs. Then something clicks and you see the child just swimming. And you don't know when that moment was, it just clicked. And they're no longer trying to remember what to do. Their understanding has changed. And because the understanding internally has changed, their actions follow. Now, one of the examples I give about this, specifically related to swimming, is when I learned to swim front crawl, breathing to my left. And then uh, as an adult, I started doing triathlons. And in triathlons, a lot of it's open water swimming, and particularly if you go in the sea. Now, think about it. If you can only breathe one way, then when you turn around, you're going the other way, and the waves could be coming at you as they would have been onto my this side, left-hand side. I would be taking a lot of water. So what I needed to be able to do is breathe the other way. Now that's how it started, but actually then it became the coach that it's obvious you need to breathe what they call bilaterally because it's better balance for your body. And so I went, yeah, that's a good idea. I've got to learn to breathe. Now, I can very competently breathe on my left hand side, but I couldn't on my right hand side. And it looked like, if you looked at the swimming pool, that I couldn't swim. It looked like I was drowning. I just was trying to think how to do it. And that's how we begin stuff. And then it clicked. And now, if you see me swim front crawl, it looks like I just have always been able to do bilateral breathing, but I didn't always know how to do it. Now there's something inside me. So why am I telling you this? Well, in terms of our health and our well-being, and to a skill, which you could call it a skill, about getting into the best shape that you want to be in, i.e., losing weight, we don't apply the same principles. Most people believe that lasting weight loss is achieved by working at it harder, being more focused. They need more willpower, they need more discipline, they need a better plan. They promise themselves that they'll stick to the thing. And sometimes they do it for a while, and then the effort, the battle becomes too much for them. And if this applies to you, you're not alone, because this, in fact, for me, is how most people approach changing their eating habits, taking exercise. They see it as a battle, and they confront it and they work hard at it. And it doesn't work that way. Not lasting change does not work that way. Lasting change doesn't come about trying harder. It comes about seeing things anew, seeing things fresh, deepening your understanding. And as people go through LightMinds, they notice something, that the relationship to themselves and to the things that they want to do change. You see, um, one difficult day doesn't erase your whole progress. It's like a child, you know, tipping off the bike. That doesn't mean they won't be able to ride a bike. Now, unfortunately, as adults, that's how we confront a lot of things. We confront it. Oh, I can't do this. But that's not the case. It's just a matter of, oh, okay, this happened. And when that happens, it's not going to work for you. Now, the thing about that and related to that is that we think all our thinking, our thoughts, what we're hearing in our heads deserve our attention. But that's not the case. They don't. That's just information. It's not fact. They're not, our thinking is not objects. One meal can never define you. You see, the thoughts in your heads are not things that you're supposed to follow. And when you begin to see this, you begin to understand that understanding works in a very different way. So setbacks do not mean failure. If you overeat one evening, that's it. You overeat one evening, that's it. Nothing more. Now, you might have a sense of discouragement, but that sense of discouragement is only the feeling attached to what you think it says about you. But what it says about you, those thoughts, are not truths. So when you begin to see something different from that, you begin to recognize that there is no failure, only feedback, only more information. Food is just food. That's it. And the next decision you make will be completely different. You don't follow patterns like that. We're in continual flow. And each time you can see something new. And as your understanding deepens, guess what? You don't have to force healthy choices. They just become the norm. we just have launched a new product in Herbal Life, and it's a fiber product. It's not part of my regime at the moment. So I decided, okay, I'll take this product. How many times do you think I took it for the first few days? Not once. I forgot it was there, it was in the fridge. And then I went, okay, I've got to set a time to take the product just so I can get into a rhythm. So I set the time, I'd take it after my meal in the evening. How many times do you think I took it in the next 3 days? Probably once. Forgot it the other two times. Now, gradually but surely, I'm remembering. And then it just goes into my system and it's there. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to have the ringtone anymore, an alarm going off. Now, this happens with everything. You become aware of stuff. You become aware of pausing before you reach for that sweet, that cake or whatever. Now, you still might go through with it, but you pause, you notice something. That's how it begins. And then you notice, oh, I'm actually hungry. Now's the time to eat. And it's not because you're having a stressful afternoon or something. And then you might get a sense of, oh, I want to go for a walk because it feels good for your body to go for a walk. Now, all these choices from the outside can look exactly the same, but they're not. They're coming from a different place. They're coming from a place of understanding rather than acts of self-control, which is what people think getting into great shape is about. It's not. It's about deepening understanding. And this to me is incredibly important. Now, how does this happen? Well, um, I'm going to go off tangent slightly of what I wanted to talk about, but I think those of you that go to the breakfast clubs will actually have come across probably, and we did it accidentally as well, although we like to say this is the reason. There's lots of reasons why breakfast clubs work, going in the mornings to breakfast clubs. There's loads of reasons for that to work very successfully. But the primary reason it works is because the space it creates for people to see things differently. Now, why that space works is because your thinking settles down. And when your thinking settles down, you have clarity. And when you have clarity and you're talking to other people on the same journey, but each one of you being unique, you're on the same journey, you have experiencing similar problems, but you are different. But when you're in those conversations and this all settles down, what happens is, boom, you see something. This is what we call an insight. Sight from within, something shifts in you. Now, a lot of these things you don't even know happen. That's really powerful, but you don't know it. You've changed. One of the things in the behavior change world we talk about, when people make change, they come up with the explanations of why it happened. They're just stories. What happened is you had an insight, often which you're not even conscious of. That's where the shift occurred inside you, deeply often. And you begin to behave differently. Now, for that insight to occur, if you're in your head and you've got all the revved up thinking, it doesn't work that way because you can't focus. Your attention's in there. When your thinking settles down, then you open up to enormous possibilities. You know, one of the key principles of LightMinds is this idea that we have an innate intelligence flowing through us. Every living thing has that same innate intelligence. And it's incredibly important to appreciate you have that flowing through you. And that's when I particularly use things like the bike analogy. Think about what it takes to actually ride a bike, to balance. And then do you really think you consciously did that? It takes too much to do that. It's overwhelming here. Our brains can't cope with that. Our brains are phenomenal things, but they can't cope with that. But we have this intelligence flowing through us that when we relax, boom, it does the work for you. But you need to relax. That's why, for me, when people come together in communities and things like that, the results far outweigh what any individual will ever achieve on their own, reading books and stuff. So, ponder on that. See if you can develop your own. So if you're not part of a club, develop your own support group. Get together with people who are like you and just see what happens just by discussing stuff, thinking about things, maybe playing some of these videos. All right, folks, take care.